everybody. This is just a quick little addendum to our recent conversation with Maya. As we got off the call, we got into another topic about something to do with Teotihuacan and Algol. And of course, we're 5 days away from a big conjunction with Mars, Uranus in Taurus on top of Algol. So Maya has a story to tell us, which is including many, I think, variables of varying descriptions. So without further ado, let's get Maya to share her story about Teotihuacan with us.
Okay. Well, we have to go way back in time to 1973. And I was living in San Antonio, Texas with my mother, my light companion. And we had certain friends that were, believers in what I was talking about. And so Philip asked me and my little cadre of people and whoever wanted to come, I think there was about 4 or 5 of us, to go to Teotihuacan and on a particular date at a particular time to do a ceremony on top of the Pyramid of the Sun. When I say ceremony, it's very interesting. I'll share that for you in just a moment. However, the reason for the timing was because Elvis Presley was doing his Aloha performance, the first satellite concert any entertainer ever to be broadcast all over the world at that moment, except for the United States. Strangely enough, we got it recorded later, but everybody else was going to see it live. This was a big deal. And of course, it was Elvis, and he was gorgeous in 73. And I have a very strong connection to Elvis. In fact, this is my book. This is the 2nd edition. It's called Blue Star Love, The Mystical Life of Elvis Aaron.
Wow.
And he was going to do this concert. Now, before we go any further, I have to say this. Elvis was not maybe what you, if you were following him, or even if you were, what you might think. He was a very deeply spiritual human being. He was an adept, a follower of Yogananda and spiritual self-realization. I mean, he did the practices, he did everything, he was in it. He had a library of over 1,000 spiritual books, and he didn't just have them sitting on the shelf. I have a few copies of his books that were given to me by a friend of his. They're underlined and underscored, and things are written in the corners, and, he studied them, And he also had a photographic memory. He could tell you on what page to look up in the Bible, something much less in one of these books. So he was a very spiritual being. And also my friend Wanda June Hill, who helped me with this book, she knew him for many, many years. And I told her about the migrations from the blue star Rigel to Earth. And I said there's certain Solarians that were born, that the souls came from there. I know mine did, and it's not exclusive. There's plenty of souls out there that probably did. But I said, mine did. And I asked, well, and I knew that he had told me Elvis's soul was from the blue star. And he said, I said, well, who else came from there? And he, somebody famous, just somebody I'd known, just who? And he said, well, Franklin Roosevelt and Anwar Sadat, the former president of, Egypt, who was assassinated. So anyway, I wrote to Wanda and I said, let's do this, and she flipped because I had just barely met her. I mean, we conversed a little bit. And the reason she was interested in me at all, she said, are you the Christine Hayes that wrote Red Tree? And I said, yes. Well, it turned out, I gave Elvis that copy of the book from the stage. I gave it to him, and he read it to Wanda's, parts of it to Wanda's sister-in-law, and then it appeared on the book list that he gave Wanda. He said, if you don't read any other books in your life, read these 22 books out of all the thousands he'd read, and my book was on it. So that's why she asked, are you Christine Hayes that wrote Red Tree? That was my name. So anyway, it flipped when I wrote her about the blue star stuff, because then she sent me a transcript, and later I do have the actual audio now of Elvis speaking to her via her permission, speaking to her and saying, have you ever heard of Rigel? It's in the constellation of Orion. It's the blue star. My soul is from there.
Wow, super cool.
And he told her this in the 60s. Okay, well, he told her first in the 60s. That was in 1970 that was recorded. So there's no way I could know, because Wanda has kept these, her sacrosanct, her relationship with Elvis, and the incredible audios of him speaking with her that now will become part of our documentary via her permission and her daughter's permission. But that's another topic. Anyway, I have to get back to Teotihuacan, but I wanted to give you a background because, this is just some guy singing, a hound dog on a microphone. So anyway, this whole thing had to line up with his actual time when he was doing this in Hawaii, which is, of course, the royal point of the planet, right? There's the grid, So here we are doing, we got there early in the morning. Well, the gates were closed and there was this one guard. The guard said, yeah, I'm not letting you in. I'm not letting you in. Forget it. Well, one of our people, who was a nice, tall, handsome, impressive man, he had some credentials. I don't know. I think he worked for a radio company. He just flashed those credentials. The guy went, oh, well, okay. And he opened the gate and let us in. So we were able to be there alone on top
Wow.
of the pyramid.
Wow.
And Thoth wanted, this is strange, but he had us to bring some alcohol with us. We bought it in Mexico City, some rubbing alcohol. And he said, pour the alcohol, a little dot on top of the pyramid. And he had me have these plates made by a jeweler. It was very inexpensive. Those they had copper, big one and two little ones with certain symbols on them. And he said, lie the symbols down on top of the alcohol splat and do it like this. And I said, what's the alcohol for? He said, it's just a transducer. It's an elemental transducer. Just put it down, like you have a diode on your skin, you might put alcohol and then you place it on. So we did that. And he said, this is going to line up with Algol, the star of Algol. I didn't know anything about Algol. I had to look it up. And he said things to me I can't remember now. But, the whole story is in here. I can show you my book better. It's in my book. And it's Blue Star Love, The Mystical Life of Elvis Aaron. This is the second edition. If you're going to look it up, make sure you get the second edition. So anyway, we did our thing, So you can say, wow, that's pretty fanciful, Maya. Okay, but let me tell you more. So before we got on the plane to go to Mexico, when we were in San Antonio, we got on the plane and Thoth said to me, we're going to give you an escort, a starship escort, because we're just going to give it to you, okay? And I said, okay, that sounds cool. And so we're flying along in the air, and all of a sudden the pilot says, ladies and gentlemen, this is the pilot speaking. He said, now I don't want you to be concerned. I'm putting it in but it was something like this. And he said, if you'll look out the left side of the plane, you'll see something that looks like, well, maybe a UFO. He said, but really, it's not that. It's not that. It's just a reflection on the clouds. And everybody went, ooh. And I was not on the side of the plane, so I couldn't see it, but everybody else was going, oh, oh. We were looking out at the escort that I'd been told that this plane would have. So at the end of all of this, days after I got home in San Antonio, accidentally, of course not, I see it in the paper because you didn't have Google or anything. There's a little blurb and it says, oh, several UFOs were sighted flying from, let's see, was it from Mexico toward Hawaii or from Hawaii toward Mexico in formation on that day, and they gave the date. Wow. So, I say that because people come up with all kinds of fancy things and they believe them, and I could be deluded too. But I mean, these things just happen and they come together in such a beautiful way, And of course, my mother and I saw the star beings together in my bedroom together on 2 occasions. And, so a lot of things have happened to bring me up to the point to feel confident enough to share these things with you at this point in time. Heck, I shared them back then. I didn't care what anybody thought.
If I can ask, Mike, what was the ceremony on top of the pyramids in connection with Algol all about? I didn't quite understand that.
Oh, well, I wish I could give you some big details on that, but all I got from Thoth was that Algol was at the time was transferring signals that needed to be cleared, like negatively cleared from the planet. I got that part. And again, we weren't doing the only thing like Maya rocks up to the pyramid and changes the whole universe. Of course not. But, we had this little role and it was, every cog in the wheel, right? So that was our cog. Oh, there's one other thing. So when we finally got to see the show, because it was not broadcast live in US for whatever reason, we saw it a month later, as a recording. And Thoth had told me, okay, he said, when Elvis sings, "We Remember You," which is the keynote song, because he was dedicated it to, he was giving all the money of the show to the Kui Lee Foundation, because Kui Lee was a Hawaiian, famous in his realm, singer who died of cancer. And Kui Lee wrote, "I'll Remember You." So that was the keynote song that Elvis was to sing. So everybody was like, this is the keynote song. And Thoth said when he sings that song is when the switch is going to be made. Some kind of switch in the energy field. So we get to see the show, and Elvis is singing "We Remember You," and all of a sudden he goes, and he looks behind him to the guys like that. It's very obvious. That he did that. Did he have a cramp in his foot? I don't know, but that's what I saw when that song was sung. So anyway, it's just a very interesting story. You can take it for what you will, but you know, I just wanted to put that in there since we're talking.
Do you remember which date exactly it was? Did you say 1973 or
73.
Yeah, in 1973, it was, I think I have the date here.
It seems like quite a significant moment for something to happen, and I'm thinking that
I can definitely look up the date because it's famous in Elvis world, you know. So
Okay,
I can
we'll follow that one up. Just to add that according to Stellar Nations, Algol, which is at 26 of Taurus, is the place of the fallen dragons and fallen angels, where there was a big battle. But Algol has a 60, is a 6-dimensional and a 4-dimensional sphere, let's call it.
Yeah.
So the 4-dimensional is the one where all of these fallen beings came to, and it's been like the dark part of the history of the angels. Is like the home of the fallen angels, because of the original sin for them was they wanted power, which is what we're talking about with the Atlanteans as well. It's the whole conflict of wanting more power.
Well, that sort of fits. Of course, I didn't know any of that then, and I'm just hearing it from you now. But you know, he said something about, you know, working with the negativity, or, you know, releasing or something like that. You know, so that would.
Yeah, I mean, as the final thought for this little addendum to our longer chat, which you can also find on YouTube, we wanted to bring this in because of the upcoming conjunction on the 15th of July with Mars, Uranus in Taurus. It's actually on 28 degrees, mass or minus, more or less, but is within orb of Algol, and Algol is probably the final piece of the jigsaw, Maya, in many ways, that some of us are understanding from the galactic history, because it's the birthplace of the satanic principles, we can say, the fallen dragons merging with the fallen angels, creating this other being. And so that's the 4th dimensional aspect, but the 6th dimensional aspect is much more elevated from that. And so a lot of the galactic eyes have been on the fate of Algol in this moment, because Algol was in danger of exploding under its own density. Now, I feel that if we get through the 15th of July without that having happened, then I somehow, energetically, I don't feel it's going to happen. I think that we passed that point a while ago, but because it takes a while for light to receive us here in the physical form on Earth, we might not see the positive consequences of that maybe until sometime later this year or next year. But just wanting to put into everybody's awareness that this is probably the most powerful day of the second half of the year. And is probably, if you think about Mars, Uranus, Algol, that's a whole lot of combustible energy. So we can work with that really positively, but we can also hold it in our awareness that it may be a triggering energy for other people. So I'm very, very curious to know what was going on in that day in 1973, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some sort of astrological Mayan time loop delta to the 15th of July. Yeah. So I don't know what that is, but anyone out there?
I think it was January. I think it was in January, which happens to be his birth month, Elvis's birth month. But I think it was. I will look it up and get you that date, because it might prove interesting. Of course, you know, Elvis had his suits, you know, he was wearing the eagle suit for that. And Thoth even talks about, you know, and I gave the information on how the eagle matches up with that. I say Thoth, it was actually the Star Kindred. They were speaking to me, but it was all coming from the Thoth Akasha at the time. And but he had dragon, you know, the dragon suit, and the, you know, the sundial. I showed you the picture of the sundial suit, and these were his ideas. I mean, his designer put it together, but you know, he was the one that wanted to wear these. And he gave the scars out like the Tibetan lamas did. He would bless the scars before he handed them out. Not that he thought he was some kind of god or anything. He just, you know, he was blessing them. We can all have the right to bless something, you know. And he blessed the scars. And when he gave them to the young ladies or whatever, you know, these were blessed scarves. And I have one he gave to me.
Wow.
So yeah.
Let me add the bit about Rigel then. Rigel sits at about 16 degrees of Gemini and is supposed to be a 60 star. This is according to Stellar Nations information. And it's a home of dragons, and it has to do everything with equilibrium, with Tai Chi, with like the martial arts kind of movement. Everything that has to do with the balance of motion. It's the teachings from Rigel, which is in Orion. It's one of the 5th virtues. It's the 5th virtue of the dragons. Is what it's supposed to be.
Well, see, Elvis was a black belt karate master.
He was. Wow.
And look, I've managed to. Can you see this, ladies? I've managed to.
Yeah, that's super cool. Is that
was
what
his
you're going to
last-
be wearing on the Path of the Jaguar?
That was his last suit too. It was the last one he wore before his death. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hey, if I could
Wow.
pull it off as good as Elvis, I'd be happy, you know.
So Maya,
I don't
something
think I'm gonna
seems to
try, but-
be, something wants to seem to show about Rigel and Teotihuacan through all of this experience. So if anything comes through, we'll share it in the Path of the Jaguar. How about that?
Yes. Definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and for all of you interested folks out there in deltas, timelines, loops, please do, along with us, look into the day of that transmission of Elvis. I do somehow think it is really important. A first live global something,
Well-
but also not televised in the US, which I think is interesting. There's something there, but I want to have a look at the astrology of that day in relation
it.
to the July the 15th and see if there's a loop or a delta, because something tells me there is. But
I'm
let's
sure.
put it out there for our audience to look into. Collective research is a lot of fun.
You can put the dates into the info box with the other things because I can give it to you in a few minutes. You know,
Cool.
I'll find it.
Perfect. So there we go, everybody. An unexpected addendum, impromptu, tales of Elvis, Teotihuacan, Algol, and who knows what other mysteries to unfold, such as the nature of Maya's world and our world increasingly too. So thank you, Maya, for sharing that wonderful little anecdotal story there, which I think has somehow got a lot more relevance as yet to be unpacked. And thank you again for your wonderful interview with us earlier. So hope
Thank
you
you,
enjoyed that little
Maya.
addendum, everybody, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.